Shall I begin with a joke before my sermon starts? 2 little mice knocked on the door of the church, and the church mouse opened the door and said, "Yes, what do you want?" And the 2 little mice said, "Please, we'd like to speak about cheeses." Oh, okay, that's the joke for today. We want to speak about Jesus. The presentation of Christ in the temple, 40 days after Christmas, is sometimes known as Candlemas. Candles are lit to recall the words of Simeon on greeting the Christ child, a light for revelation to Gentiles, for the glory of your people Israel. But what is the light that Christ brings for revelation to our lives and to our world? What do the candles we light today stand for? One of the phrases that Jesus used most in the Gospels puzzle us even today. When Jesus healed people, he did not say, "I will save you." He did not say, "My faith will save you." Rather, he said, "Your faith has saved you." And these 5 words tell us so much about how Jesus understood his mission. He came as the long-awaited Messiah. We heard from Amelia in our first reading from the book of Malachi, the long-awaited Messiah. But he did not come as the people expected. They expected a second King David. They expected a military Messiah who would swoop in and fix everything and hail a new golden age for Israel. Jesus did not raise a revolutionary army to overthrow the Roman oppressors and restore Jewish civil and religious order. Rather, it seems that Jesus had a completely different interpretation of what it meant to fulfill the scriptures. He refused to conform to the expectations of the people by arming his followers with daggers, swords, spears, chariots, and war horses. Rather, he armed his disciples with faith, with hope, with service, with forgiveness, with love. When Jesus said to those people that he healed, "Your faith has saved you," he was freeing them both from a passive, pious complacency, which is one danger that religious people fall into. He was also saving them from resorting to desperate, violent action, which is the other danger that religious people can fall into. Jesus' words were so surprising for people because he empowered them for something better. When he said, "Your faith has made you well, your faith has saved you," he was empowering them to take faithful, peaceful, loving action. How much we need that kind of empowerment in our lives today. Empowering us in our dealings with political and economic systems that are destroying our planet, privileging a super elite, and producing weapons of unprecedented destruction at an unprecedented rate. And we need to light the candle of faith. Empowering us to stand up to religious systems that have often had extremists at one end and complacent hierarchies and hypocrites at the other. We need to light the candle of faith. To grapple, we need empowerment to grapple with the complex forces that break down family, community, and social cohesion, leaving the most vulnerable people at greatest risk, especially women, and the very young, and the very old. We need to light a candle of faith. We need empowerment also in our lives to help us face our personal demons of greed, lust, anxiety, depression, anger, addiction, especially when the world is spending billions to stimulate those very demons so that people will buy their products. We need people who will light the candle of faith. To find solutions to the problems of our world and of our lives, we need to be empowered. We need to know that it is our faith, our inner orientation towards a loving God, that will give us the strength and the courage we need, will empower us in our lives. How does our faith empower us? Jesus teaches us to stop having enough religion to hate and to start having enough faith to love. When we're tempted to hate, to criticize, to complain, how much we need to light a candle to see how we may act to bring light into the situation. Do you remember in the opening chapters of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, there are two trees in the middle of the garden. The tree of life, which is a wonderful picture of all that nourishes, encouraging us to see goodness in everything. And then the other tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The tree whose fruit we grasp because we want to know, we want to judge everything and everyone. We want to judge everyone around us as either good or evil. When we eat of this second tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we're constantly judging us as good and condemning them as evil. And of course others do the same to us. In the shade of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, soon nobody is safe. Nobody is free. Nobody is truly and fully alive. Jesus came to call us back to the tree of life, where we stop creating a them to condemn as evil people and an us to privilege as good people. If our faith is going to make us well, then before we start throwing stones at others, we need to examine ourselves very carefully. When we've experienced how difficult and how delicate it is to deal with our own problems, then we're much more sensitive in helping others to deal with theirs. When I'm feeling miserable and angry and anxious and uptight, I need to light a candle, the candle of faith, to see that my own anxiety is more dangerous to me than whatever I am anxious about. My own habit of condemning and hating is more dangerous to me than what I condemn in others. And my misery is absolutely unnecessary, because I and you and everyone is truly, truly, truly loved. Our faith will make us well. You'll know the parable Jesus told of the Good Samaritan. Jesus tells the story of a man by the side of the road, waking up realizing that he has been loved by the very one who is supposed to hate him, whom he is supposed to fear, the Samaritan. And Jesus presents this hated, feared, unclean Samaritan as a picture of God. And he tells us to go and do likewise. Do you see, Jesus does not draw lines between the good and the bad, between the clean and the unclean. Jesus is only upset with people who feel that they are not sinners, those who feel justified in their judging, writing off, and hating others. Jesus taught that God is the light, the utter goodness that enfolds our lives and creates a non-threatening, non-dualistic universe for us, a renewed universe that we can now pass on to others. Let me tell you 2 stories to renew your faith in human nature. In the town of Preston in northern England, 22-year-old student Dominique Harrison Benson, leaving a party in the early hours, realised she had no money and no charge on her mobile phone to make a call. She began to panic. She had no bank card with her. A homeless man called Robbie saw what was going on and looked in his pockets. He had £3, the only money he had in the world. He gave her the money to get a taxi, at least part of the way home. Dominique felt she really couldn't take it, and somehow she found her way home. But the next day, she began with her mother a 4-day search to find Robbie. She wanted to thank him. She had a number of surprising meetings with other people that Robbie had helped. One had got his lost briefcase back. Another, Robbie offered his scarf. At last, Dominique found Robbie. He'd been living on the streets for 7 months. He hadn't managed to get a job because he had no permanent address. Dominique decided to help him. She told the story on the internet and asked for £3 donations to help Robbie. She was aiming to get about £12,500. A week later, she'd raised over £20,000 to put a roof over his head and to help others in a similar situation. The second story is from Kenya, where a doctor started a medical charity to eradicate the blindness caused by trachoma. One recent case was 2 elderly ladies, friends over many years, who were blind and who had never seen each other. Thanks to donations made to this medical charity, the doctors could treat them. When the bandages were removed after the operation, they saw one another for the very first time, and they danced together with laughter and tears, as only Africans can. My brothers and sisters, do you see how kind life can be? Do you see how beautiful the world is when we stop having enough religion to hate and begin having enough faith to love? We are healed and we can live healing lives when we start living with the light of faith in our hearts. Jesus taught that there is grace and truth and love at the very heart of the universe. And if we will orient our lives on God, then we will become what we were always meant to be, light for the world, children of the living God. The light in which Simeon rejoiced is a light that is relit today in our hearts. It's relit in our souls, and it will show us how to live. Let's keep a moment or two of quiet before Eleanor, I think, sings.